we knew that it was a better way, right? It freed us up to practice in a way that was healthy and whole for us and for the clients. It sort of let us choose our destiny and be able to say, here's how we want to work. And that let clients like agree to that, right, on the front end.
Welcome to Spill the Ink, a podcast by Reputation Inc., where we feature experts in growth and brand visibility for law firms and architecture, engineering, and construction firms. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm Michelle Calcote King. I'm your host, and I'm also the principal and president of Reputation Inc. We're a public relations and content marketing agency for law firms and other professional services firms. To learn more, go to rep-inc, that's inc.com. So the legal industry is undergoing a rapid transformation. It's being driven by advancements in technology, but also shifting client demands and expectations. To stay ahead of the curve, many law firms are adopting innovative strategies to help streamline their operations and better serve their clients, including ditching the billable hour. So on that topic, today I've invited Whitney Harper to spill the ink. She's going to share about how her company, ADVOS Legal, is helping law firms modernize their practice management. And as a side note, Whitney and I both grew up in the same very small town, which we just discovered a few months ago. So welcome to the show, Whitney.
Thanks so much, Michelle. I'm thrilled to be here. Really excited to talk with you about it.
That's right. Let's represent Keystone Heights really well here. Right. So, well, let's start with if you can just kind of tell me about ADVOS Legal, ADVOS Pro, and your background.
Yeah, for sure. So it's definitely been a career in the making, and really two careers in the making. My business partner, Gwen Griggs, and I, even before we met, essentially had the same career path, which is kind of, you know, that starts the story of Kismet, right? Like this is meant to be. We both were big law lawyers, litigating a bit, kind of exploring different practice areas, billing by the hour, kind of in that machine. And then we both went to in-house roles and were kind of in that different situation where you're part of the business team and you're not measuring hours. Nobody cares how long it took you to do a thing. They actually care, did you get the deal done? And did we hit our profitability metrics? They wanted to know if it was done on time. Did they get the intended result? And that was a really interesting role. I know for myself, sitting in that spot where you're part of a business team, where you've only really, your business experience has been a law firm. Yeah. You sort of starkly realize like, oh, right. Law firms are businesses too. They just think it's gauche to say so. Right. So like you have this realization, you go, oh, okay, now I can see some differences in how we were operating there versus what we're up to over here. And then Gwen and I each in kind of separate spots in our career, but had this opportunity to jump out and have an operator role. And so running a business unit, now you're a client of the lawyer or the legal team. So that's a whole other experience, right? What is it to receive service from the lawyer? And yes, you care about the deal done and the profitability metrics and those things. You really also care about the ROI, right? Was the juice worth the squeeze? And that's a different question too. That, you know, lawyers, I think my experience of being a lawyer, particularly in big law, was we start as order takers. Right? Client says, I need X. I say, I have X. I can do that. I go do it. We never really have that conversation on the front end about what's the value of X to you, dear client, and what's it going to cost? And how long is it going to take? And what are the likely, kind of alternatives that you could approach? And it's not to say that lawyers don't have those conversations with clients. Yeah, it's just not a built-in part of the model, and it's not necessarily done in like a systematic way, right? So we leave our operator roles and we meet up and we partnered up in what I say it's technically a law firm, but it doesn't feel like a law firm, right? Yeah. So we both knew we couldn't go back to kind of the old guard way of practicing law because our brains had shifted to this business mentality. And so we took what we knew about the client experience and business principles and our drive to find a better way. And we built the ADVOS way. It was interesting. We looked hard to make this easier on ourselves. Like we wanted to find someone else's platform and model and method. And we are both voracious readers, continuous learners. We thought surely someone
somebody solved this. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be the first one doing this.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, although I think there are other people out there who have solved portions of it or who have solved it themselves very specifically, there wasn't a solution or a methodology in the market to really lean on. So we built it ourselves, and we started operating on our proprietary system. We have a methodology that we've developed, and then we built the software platform to support it. And we started doing that in 2015 and really haven't looked back.
Great.
I will say we've iterated a lot, right? What we have now doesn't look a whole lot like it did in 2015, although there are some kind of hallmarks in there that have never changed.
Yeah.
So ADVOS Legal has been kind of the test kitchen, if you will.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you
ADVOS
started
Pro.
with yourself, your law firm, and you went through the process. So when you first launched the firm, were you billing hourly at the time and then thought, okay, I want to shift this up, and tell me how that happened. What was that process? How that look like?
Very good question. We had a couple of clients early days where our point person was a lawyer. And that person understood billing by the hour, didn't also understood why there's a potentially different, better way. But also was a sophisticated buyer of legal services, kind of knew how to get in, get out, that whole thing. And in those situations, we were billing by the hour and it worked okay, right? It was a pain on our end because you got to go do the work, then bill for the work, then go collect for the work, and you're chasing that. But, and it's reactive, right? So we are by nature people who like to build a plan, know that the client agrees with the plan, so we can go execute the plan and we feel great about it.
Yeah.
And hourly work doesn't lend itself to that very much. So we had some hourly work, but we very much had we knew we didn't want to do it. The experience of doing it cemented, we really don't want to do this.
Right.
And kind of fueled that fire to build a structure so that it wasn't just ad hoc, I think that's going to be $3,000. That's going to be $10,000. This is $750, right? We need a thing that clients, particularly in the early days, we need to be able to show them Pinocchio and say, this is a real boy, right? It's a real thing. And it was an evolution, certainly, but it came together pretty quickly when we started working under the Agile Scrum methodology. So we had a friend who said, hey, what you're trying to do looks and feels a lot like this thing software developers are doing. And they're developing the slate of work in a sprint, a container of time. And they're assigning points to that work. And they're saying, hey, here's how many points we can get done in this period of the sprint. And here's what those points are going to cost. Yeah. And so we kind of said, there's a corollary there. And we developed what kind of the early days of the P3 method. Okay. So we've been operating on this method without it having a name, right? Which is the ADVOS, this is how we do it. But we've been operating on that method since really 2015. And we knew that it was a better way, right? It freed us up to practice in a way that was healthy and whole for us and for the clients. It sort of let us choose our destiny and be able to say, here's how we want to work. And that let clients agree to that, right? On the front end. Yes, that sounds great. Let's go do that together. So we were never having the conversation on the back end of a project where the client says, if I had known this was going to be this much, I never would have asked you to do it, right? That feels gross. Yeah. We don't do that. We have these client relationships where we really are part of their team because they know there's not a clock running. Right. And so you build that and you look at it and you go, this thing has to scale. We always knew we wanted to build a solution to scale. Yeah. And in the beginning, we thought we wanted to scale under the ADVOS legal umbrella, right? We have this great firm. We think it's wonderful. Let's go take it to the masses. Yeah. We pretty quickly discovered that really lawyers who want to practice differently, right? They don't want to practice under my brand. They want a foundation, a way, so that they can have a solid base for how they're going to practice, right? They want a method that's tried and true. Right. They want it under their own banner. And and they want to be able to kind of choose their own adventure too, right? Like what's important to one lawyer might not be the thing that's important to somebody else. You might choose more profit and someone else might choose more time flexibility. You might choose a firm of 1 and somebody else wants a firm of 5. And all of those things can work on this system, but those are the choices, that sort of agency in it.
Interesting. Yeah.
That we saw that people really wanted to be able to have their own choices in it on a consistent, reliable foundation.
Yeah.
So
what are some of the core changes? And I know it's an entire training course you go through, so I know it would be hard to distill it down for me, but what are some of those core things that law firms have to do to shift to, to get away from the billable hour and to implement your method? Yeah.
So the P3 method, that is our kind of shift from hourly to deliverables-based kind of training approach, is about exactly those things. And what we've tried to do is take something that can be really big and overwhelming and make it very straightforward, bite-sized, so that you can start in small bites, get small wins, build a little traction, and then let it begin to kind of gain footholds in the rest of your practice. And that was really important to us because we know, as we have grown and learned, you make a small iteration, you see how that's going, like then where's the next good place to adopt that? And that's how you do it while you're still running a business and still need to like keep the train running.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So the P3 method is pricing, pitching, and profit.
Okay.
So we say you're to learn to price, pitch, and profit like a pro.
Okay.
And the pricing piece is really about taking the billing that an hourly lawyer would do on the back end and going like all the way back to the beginning of the engagement and saying, what are the deliverables that would have been part of this engagement? And how do we break them into their component parts? And how do those component parts size up to each other, right? Like small, medium, large, just comparatively. And being able to kind of figure out, like, let's size them from there. And then you almost can think about it like tokens in an arcade. Right? This game costs 1 point. That game costs 10 points. This one's 3 points. If I know what a token costs, now I can like kind of price size them. But I also can figure out like, why is one more valuable than the other? In law land, it's size, complexity, and the big bonus here is you get to factor in urgency. If I'm billing by the hour, and you call me at midnight, and you're like, I need this by 8 a.m. That hour, or however many hours it takes, costs the same as the same number of hours in the middle of tomorrow, or the same number of hours that I can spread out over 3 weeks at my leisure. But in our method, what we're saying is there's an urgency factor here. So your 1 point project might be 2 points if you need it on an urgent timeline.
Got it.
And clients are fine with that, right? They get it, right? It happens in every other place. You want faster shipping, you pay more for that.
Right.
You want an expedited timeline, pay more for that. And we as lawyers have sort of taken it on, taken on the shoulder, like, we just have to deal with that. That's part of the deal. And it doesn't have to be. So it sort of shifts that client relationship to say, hey, client, you've presented me with this issue. Here's how I'm pricing it. If you'd like to pay for that, I'd love to do it. And sometimes clients say, is there a different way? I've more than my fair share of times had clients say, oh, I actually don't need it at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I just meant soon. Like,
right.
Cool. You have it soon. Just,
love that. Yeah.
How about I don't work through the midnight hour?
Right. Yeah.
So
that's great.
Yeah. It's the first component is really that, like, let's size things and understand how size equates to a point number and how that equates to a price. And then, I think the other thing that's a huge shift, and really it's not that hard, it's just a mental shift for lawyers, is you have to learn to pitch it. Right. So we lawyers are not, like, generally we're not super comfortable being salespeople, especially not for ourselves. Right. We'll advocate for our client all day long, real hard. In fact, like, we'll be bulldogs for our client. But when it's for ourselves, we're not great at that. And so giving a lawyer a framework that isn't a hard sell. It really is just a very straightforward, I hear you, here are the things that are part of what I think is the right solution. Maybe there's a couple of alternative ways to solve for it. Let's talk about what those could be too. Here's what those cost and here's the timeline.
Yeah.
Now, the client makes a choice, right? I'm not selling the client. I'm offering solutions to the client.
Mm-hmm.
And they can kind of pick which one that is appropriate for them and move forward. So we price, then we pitch. And then the last piece, and I think this is so fundamental, one of the things I know you talk about a lot on your podcast and in your blogs and things is really like the kind of the promise of technology, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
If you are billing by the hour, there's very little promise of technology for you. Because if I become more efficient,
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
The minute I become more efficient at stuff that would otherwise have been billable by the hour, all I've done is say, either I've got to now sell my client on a higher hourly rate,
right?
Or I've got to go get more clients, right? And go back to lawyers aren't necessarily great at sales. So we just, by being efficient, we just made it harder on ourselves somehow. And that's sort of the opposite of the point of the technology boom, right?
Yeah.
So in the P3 method, if you can price it based on the deliverable, not on the time.
Yeah.
And you can get the client to say, yep, that value is right. Then you are freed up to go say, give me all the technology, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's not just technology. So, and in fact, some of the technology is really low tech technology, like that ancient technology called a checklist.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's tech, right? It is
but just being efficient and process and and I would guess that just getting better at a certain type of deliverable.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I'm now incentivized to really train maybe my associate who, if we're billing by the hour, is going to have a lower hourly rate. But if I can train them really well and only need to train them once and give them resources so that they know, here are the articles I should look at, or here's the case law or the form or whatever, and give them great starting points. Maybe I can enable my paralegal to do much higher level work because I can give them really good guidance. And I don't care that their hour bills lower than mine, right? In fact, I'm exuberant about that because they can go do that work. And I now can do the work that is only senior level can do, right?
Yeah. Right.
So that whole kind of profit piece is, on the one hand, the pricing is important. Let's make sure we're pricing appropriately. But on the other hand, let's make sure that we are actually building in the efficiencies and the continuous improvement loop so that every time we do a thing, we get better, faster, stronger at it. And the client is still thrilled to pay the price that we set in the beginning, right? They don't care that I could do it in 20 minutes instead of 20 hours. It's really about like the value to the client.
Yeah.
And I'm building a stronger machine and a stronger team, all those things.
Yeah. So it sounds like, you're helping clients, one, sort of back up they've been billing hourly for a long time, so they can look at some sort of matter and say, well, that typically takes us 50 hours, let's say. Sure. But then you're also bringing in other qualifying factors to help price it. So complexity, urgency, those kind of things. And
you're breaking it up, right? So like if somebody said, I want to sell my business, well, sell your business isn't something I can just size.
Right.
But if we can have some conversation on the front end, and I'm going to invest time with that client on the front end. And in our firm, we don't bill for it. I know some firms do. And that works where it works and doesn't where it doesn't. But you have a lot of conversation on the front end to say, let's understand kind of the character of the transaction itself, who are the parties, what do you think, like, how hard do you intend to negotiate it? What timeline do you have? And then we can say, typically the components of this kind of deal are, here's your list. And if we know those are generally, maybe this one's 1 or 2 points and this one's 3 or 4 points, and like you can kind of build a range, right? So maybe your transaction is really somewhere between 20 and 30 points. Well, if I know what point costs, I can tell you what that's going to cost.
Yeah.
The client can see what are the drivers, right? So now on the front end, the client can say, oh, well, you mean that when I decide to just like go to the mattresses on a dumb point that really doesn't matter,
Right. Yeah.
I'm actually costing myself X dollars for every
Yeah.
go around of that. Okay, got it. Now I can decide, do I want to do that or not, right?
So you're spending more time at the beginning to really understand what that matter is going to look like. And because that's, my brain immediately goes to scope creep. What do you do with scope creep? Yeah. So it sounds like spending more time at the front end to really understand what it's going to look like, and really map it out. That helps you avoid that scope creep and the more defined scope you have.
That is huge. And continuous communication. So we build in a communication loop, if you will, kind of a cadence where, and I'll back up and say like 70% of ADVOS Legal's business is membership. Those are clients who are on a kind of continuous monthly fee. They know how many points they have to use each quarter. We're in communication with them, some every other week, some every month, some, on different cadences, but we're talking with them frequently and saying, hey, here's how many points you have for the quarter. Here's where we are using your points. Because sometimes projects shift. We thought we were going to do this project. Turns out that project's dead, but you need to have some other project in, right? So that's one way that you handle it is points are fungible. You walk into the arcade with your bag of tokens and you thought you wanted to play that one game 10 times. Turns out you want to play this other one.
Yeah.
Fine. You've got points. Let's go use them. On a project where we've scoped a specific project, it's very similar, right? We have built in that communication cadence. So the client knows I'm paying this. I know I'm going to pay this much and it might go up. And here's why it might go up. And then if the deal takes a turn, we're having a conversation to say, in some cases, hey, something has shifted. I don't think you should move forward with this deal. We need to stop billing now, right? Like we want to downsize your project. But in other cases, it's just the conversation on the front end. The important part is having the conversation early, right? So you have to be able to project manage. That doesn't exist in most law practice management software platforms, right? That's like not a skill that lawyers think about other than calendaring deadlines for litigation or something of that sort, right? Like that's a big thing built into systems and for good reason. But we don't as an industry typically think about how do we project manage this? How do we make sure that we're staying aligned with the stakeholders? And so, as we were in the infant stages of we're operating on this method and going, whoa, I can't, like, you can do it on a spreadsheet, but when there's more than one person on the team, or you've got, more than a handful of clients to do that with, that becomes a full-time job in itself. And so when we built our software, we built in the kind of project management approach, that communication cadence, the reporting on points that clients are using, all of those pieces, so that we were making it easier to deliver on the promise of this method. Yeah.
And so now you have a training program that law firms can take to implement this at their firms. What is that? Tell me about that training program. What does that look like? How long does it take? Who do you get involved to take that course? Talk me through that.
Absolutely. So I'll give you the high level. There's plenty of detail on our website, advospro.com. The P3 method is the course you're referring to. So we have this P3 method course that's built into 4 modules, and each module is 2 sessions. The first session is kind of like this conversation, right? It's us walking through the method and the kind of worksheets or assets that we have as part of that course. So the lawyer going through the course has a real-time kind of walkthrough of it. And we're talking about it in terms of examples within their practice. And then we're talking about, let's literally in that session, you go ahead and write some things down on your worksheet or fill in this, workbook or whatever. And then kind of defining at the end of that first session, the homework. So picking, as I mentioned before, that bite-sized piece where you can go apply that in your practice
Right.
and get a sense for how it works without a big risk, right? Like, don't go do this on your biggest client who may or may not be a big fan of yours today. Pick somebody new, pick somebody low risk. Let's go try it out.
Yeah.
And then the second session of each module is really just a check-in, kind of report back. How did it go? Safe space to talk about how it was scary, or I had some friction over on this part. I thought I understood this, but I didn't. And really make sure that you understand it well, so that you can move on to the next module, because it kind of all builds on each other. So it's 4 modules. We've done it so far as 1 session each week. And so it's then 8 weeks. And really our mission there is to deliver kind of extreme value, right? We want everybody to come out of that course feeling really capable and really well supported. And I always feel like if I take some sort of class or something, like I want to come out feeling like a genius, right? So I want that.
Absolutely. It's the worst whenever you don't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's great. So is there a type of, I think you had explained this to me before, but a type of law firm or size of firm where this works really well? Because I would assume, litigation's probably not going to be the best fit, or contingency fee firms, that kind of thing.
Contingency fee, like, it doesn't make a ton of sense, right? You might still, in a contingency fee matter, want the software platform just for the project management. But the concept of moving from hourly to deliverable really is from hourly. So if you're contingency, you don't need to go scope things into points and like nobody cares. You get a percentage of what you take, and there you go.
Done. Yeah.
If you are hourly, though, it makes a ton of sense. And we've talked with people who are doing this kind of work in litigation. People think it can't work in litigation, but it really can.
Interesting. Okay.
You have to project manage it.
Yeah.
So
right.
Important part. But family law, estates and trusts, we do it in kind of a business law, corporate law setting. Not great for contingency, not great for things like insurance defense, where you have kind of a set,
right?
Like there's a model of machine there, you're not going to change it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I would say, I don't think it's a great fit for a big firm.
Right.
So a lot of people say, like, "Ooh, you need to go talk to like AmLaw 500." Like, no, I am not trying to like make a sharp turn in an aircraft carrier. Like, that's
right. Yeah, that would be. Yeah.
It really is. And this is kind of tied to our mission too. We see this as something that's a tremendous fit for small or solo law firms. And, as an aside, we have clients on this methodology who are not law firms. So it's certainly not something that's like exclusively for law firms. That's the market we know. That's the language we speak. We've got some CPAs, some business brokers, like other people who are on the platform.
Other professional services. Okay.
Professional services, billing by the hour in a small firm setting. But our mission really is that we want to impact 1 million lawyers to build the practice they love, right? The practice that they're doing.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're sitting in a big firm and they're trying to implement this, that's not necessarily the practice of your dreams.
Right.
That's like the practice of the committee's dreams, which means it's the practice of no one's dreams.
Yeah. I can imagine a lot of it is taking back kind of control a little bit for a law firm owner, or, helping them avoid, just some of the pains that the legal industry is well known for, the associate churn and all of that.
Well, we talk about burnout, right? Like lawyers are burning out left and right, and burnout's like the nice way to say mental health issues, suicide rates, like alcoholism, all the things, and broken families, and just like communities and people who are sort of unto themselves and all these things. And it's because lawyers are practicing in a practice that doesn't love them back, right? Like they're in a system that wasn't designed for the health and well-being of the lawyer or the client or the community or the team. And so when we think about the work at ADVOS Pro, that we really love doing, we have, some specific offerings because they are the things that we've identified through our work with clients as the drivers of those end goals. But we're not here to say, this is what your ultimate practice needs to look like. Really, where we start with a lot of our clients is the deep dive to think about, what is the practice of your dreams? And what is the practice of today? And what's not working, right? What are the disconnects between those two things? Then we can roadmap together to say, first thing we need to address is this. And it might be, it might not be the P3 method, right? It might be, you need to understand your financials really well. And we've got an offering around that, right? Like let's make sure that you have good financial foundations, or just law firm foundations in place. Or that you have a sense of who your ideal client is and how you go to market, right? Like, let's make sure that you've got those things squared away. Or if it really is, I want the agency of deciding what I'm going to charge for a thing and having clients decide that they want that. And I want a different kind of client relationship and a different way to work. And I don't want to measure my life in 6-minute increments. P3 is great.
Has it created amongst your clients who have gone through the training, has it created a sense of like, is there almost a sense of community amongst those firms that have implemented this? Is that a vision of y'all's?
Because
I see
definitely.
I bet it has. We're going through EOS implementation right now. And I'm part of a group that discusses that and other agencies. So I could see how it's similar to, other agencies working to kind of, because that's part of that. It's gaining control and,
well, it's a funny thing, right? Like when you are with other people who are EOS people, there's a whole vocabulary that goes.
Whole vocabulary, right? Yeah, exactly.
Are you a visionary, integrator?
Right. Yes.
How's your L10 meeting going?
There
right?
you go.
We can spit the lingo all day long.
Yeah.
And it's great because it does build community. And then you have this shorthand. You're not alone. You're part of a tribe, and you've got this whole thing, right? That's definitely a big part of what we see as the value of ADVOS Pro, is like being able to bring together that community of people who all are saying, we love the work we're doing. We love our profession. And we are like supporting each other in building a way to do that work so that we all can win. And it's tremendous. Like it gives you chills when you think about it.
It is huge. Yeah. Especially, as a business owner myself, and I'm sure that law firm owners are small business owners, you sort of feel alone a lot, especially if you don't have a lot of partners. So you suddenly have people you can kind of go to and share those, challenges and ask the questions that, you haven't had anyone to ask before. And so I can imagine that's a huge part of it.
What's interesting too, Michelle, is, I think lawyers are even more hesitant than most to let people know that they have those insecurities or that they feel alone, or they have
absolutely,
because our clients come to us looking for advice. Like people come to us for answers, and so for us to say, I don't know, like that, that is, it's like there's some sort of like primal fear that goes with that, and so being able. I feel this way about the work we do at ADVOS Legal with our business clients. We're talking with a CEO or a CFO who similarly people in the business look to for answers, and they need a place to say, oh my gosh, I don't know. Like this is hard and I don't know the answer. And we do that with law firm owners, lawyers on the ADVOS Pro side. And honestly, that is, it is some of the most fulfilling work. That's just being able to be there and hear somebody say, I need help. And maybe I have an answer or, a set of options, or maybe I'm just an ear to hear it. But I think to your point, that community becomes part of the answer, right? Like I need help, and just hearing somebody else go, yep, I'm struggling with that too.
Right. Yeah. Part of it is just someone to listen. Right. Absolutely. Or I dealt with that too.
Yes.
Well, this is great. And so before we go, is there anything I haven't asked that you think would be important for listeners to know about this? So I always like to end that just in case I didn't touch on something that's important. I know.
So ADVOS Pro, I think one of the most interesting conversations we get to have on that side is kind of the evolution of technology for law, technology generally, right? And,
Yeah.
and the legal side, we have a lot of clients who are in AI and machine learning and RPA and like all the like the very sexy tech stuff right now, right? And so like we often hear people say like, aren't you scared? The robots are coming. And I feel like the work we're doing in ADVOS Pro is really sort of like, let's welcome the robots in.
Right.
Let's figure out how to let the robots do the stuff that no lawyer went to law school because they dreamed of spending their day doing that.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
none of us went to law school and thought, let me go do really routine things all day.
Sure. Yeah.
No, that can be the robot's job all day long. So we let the machines do that stuff. And then we kind of build the processes and the systems and the business models to let us go apply our genius to solving the sticky problems that frankly really matter to our clients and our communities. And that, like that makes you excited to be a lawyer again, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Let's go do that.
Yeah. Solving problems. Absolutely. This is great. Well, thank you so much. We have been talking to Whitney Harper of ADVOS Legal and ADVOS Pro. What's the best way people could get in touch with you? LinkedIn or just go to the website? Yeah,
we're all over the place. So the website is advospro.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Whitney Harper. My email is whitney@advospro.com. And whatever way you want to reach out, I will say we love talking about this stuff and we are always open to having conversations, whether it's a problem we can solve or not. We are really excited to connect with the community of lawyers who are thinking about it. So please feel free to reach out.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Michelle, thanks so much for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, great.
Thanks for listening to Spill the Ink, a podcast by Reputation Inc. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.